Tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to episode 183 of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Zach Chavalella. And we're missing Eric, we're missing Morgan, right? But it doesn't mean it cannot still be a very beautiful podcast, even after suffering a very, very ill defeat against the Jets. But other than that, how you feeling, man?
We are down to the dynamic duo, and that is the only good news right now for Eagles fans, Flipping the Birds fans. It was a rough game. I'm still trying to recover emotionally. I'll be flat honest with you. The Phillies did pick up my spirits quite a bit, hoping they can continue to do so tonight. But they lost a game that they shouldn't have lost, basically. And so I think it was Dallas Goedert earlier today was talking about, how he called it a good loss, I believe. And what he was saying is how it's one that really opens up your eyes. You're losing. It's not like losing in a playoff moment. This is an opportunity to kind of reinvigorate yourselves, kind of a reality check. And it's better to have that reality check now instead of when you're in the hunt for seeding, for instance. But if you ask me, even still, I was expecting that reality check to come a little later on in the season. I wasn't expecting it against the New York Jets. So it's still a little frustrating. What were your immediate takeaways, Brian?
It's funny. On Friday, I jumped on Birds 365 with Jody Mack and Mark Farzetta. And I told him, I think the Eagles defense will have Zach Wilson seeing ghost. But it felt like the Jets defense actually had Jalen Hurts seeing ghost in the field because he just seemed like he couldn't get his footwork down. He couldn't get his technique all together. He was overthrowing a lot of the guys on that short pass to AJ Brown on that last drive. It felt like uncharacteristically Jalen Hurts, right? And you have national media saying, "Is this guy a legit quarterback? He's an average quarterback. He's humbled, all this extra BS." But it's a product of what they are right now, right? They're an offense that's just still coming together. They have the same players, but they don't have the same coordinator. Shane Steichen was a veteran compared to Brian Johnson. And it's just, you're seeing the proof in the pudding at the end of the day. You're seeing with this team for what it is, but they're 5-1 for what it is at the end of the day. But you talked about, it's not a playoff game, but tell that to the Jets because they were celebrating like they just won a Super Bowl at MetLife. Like it was an astonishing accomplishment on their behalf, apparently.
Well, it's the end of an era. It's the Jets' first victory against the Philadelphia Eagles in the history of their franchise. And yeah, it basically was, much like the Lions were playing the Eagles last year, like it was the Super Bowl for the Jets. It basically was, no Aaron Rodgers this year. They've been dealing with constant doubters, and especially after the recent hits to the secondary that they sustained going into the game, which is yet another reason why the Eagles should not have lost. They're feeling themselves, and I would say rightfully so. They don't have a lot to celebrate this year. They should absolutely be celebrating this. And it adds to the frustration, if you're Philadelphia. Hopefully it adds to the motivation moving forward to next week. And one quick thing before we move on, I just want to input a shameless plug here real quick. Since you mentioned our friend Jody Mack, anyone looking to listen to some Sixers talk, check out WIP tomorrow night at midnight. I'll be joining Jody Mack to talk some Sixers. Now, let's bring this back to Birds Focus.
Nice little plug.
Nice little plug, it's just it felt like the right moment. You mentioned Jody Mack, I mentioned my spot on the Jody Mack show. So anyway, it was a gut punch of a game. I mean, you look and you see, how Devontae Smith, for instance. Let's talk about Devontae Smith real quick. 11 targets, They were really looking to get on the ball. And he reeled in 5 of them. It's frankly not enough. There were a lot more, some easy drops, some concentration issues, like Duck says, stupid mistakes, and it was very uncharacteristic. But you have to make
Can
sure
we pause on that Devontae Smith comment real quick? How many targets did you say he had?
11.
11. And according to Donovan McNabb, AJ Brown's demanding more targets, as per seen on Twitter today. Just to put that out there, right? I just want to clarify that. I mean, the targets are there.
Well, so let's talk Donovan McNabb for a quick second, and then
God,
after the game, AJ Brown stepped up to Donovan McNabb through social media, but he didn't really have another way to do it, and rightfully so. To put it back in its place. Now, I don't know what's going on with McNabb. You know, it's not an easy position, McNabb's. That being a star in Eagles history who was never treated like a star. And the reason he wasn't was the personality differences between he and the fandom here in Philadelphia. Well, he's continuing to do the same kind of stuff that kept him from being beloved in Philadelphia. And he's talking nonsense once again. And AJ Brown stepped up to him and corrected him and kind of put him in his place a little bit, where he corrected the conversations that he and Jalen had throughout the season so far. Just talking about it, like, listen, it's football. It's heat of the moment stuff. And these are two guys who are particularly close at that. So that filter is a little lighter between those two guys. So they're just having a heated discussion, which is absolutely part of the game. And then it's fine. You know, you put everything out on the table and you move on. That's just how it works. It's not some deep thing. It's not a matter of, you know, AJ Brown is going to pout like a diva. Like, listen, all wide receivers, you got to have that diva in you if you're going to be a good wideout. That's basically the general rule of thumb, with a few exceptions. But that being said, AJ Brown is not we're not talking about Antonio Brown. We're not talking about Odell Beckham Jr. You know, like, this is a guy who just loves the game and he loves contributing to winning. And he's happy as long as they're winning. If he has a point to bring up to Jalen on a specific throw or a specific drive, he's going to make his opinion known. Jalen's going to value it, and vice versa. Like, that's just how it works. So then he calls out McNabb, saying how he should know better. He, of all people, should know better. And AJ Brown's absolutely right. So that's my little tear on Donovan McNabb, because McNabb should know better. In fact, he does know better. He just did not care to represent the conversation that way. And that's what's most disappointing of all of it.
And it was ill-advised timing.
Ill-advised
just
timing.
Poor timing.
Just awful timing. So,
and you're looking at a roster that...
Yeah.
I was going to say, you're looking at a roster that it has Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, AJ Brown, now Julio Jones, right? DeAndre Swift. But then, like, you're seeing Jalen do that. Terrell Owens had Freddie Mitchell, Todd Pinkston.
Yeah.
I don't know if Thrash was around that time. Like, you had guys that weren't star caliber players like this roster has. Like, you had to throw it to T.O. every single down, or you weren't gonna get anywhere. And Donovan overdid it with T.O. So it's like different eras, man. Different eras.
But look at how AJ Brown has contributed anyway. I mean, even despite the 11 targets that Devontae Smith saw, despite the Eagles trying to work him and trying to work Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert's coming off a 120+ yard game. Not against the Jets, but the week before when they faced the Rams. Even still, the ball's finding its way to AJ Brown. He had another game with over 130 yards, 131 yards on 7 receptions. Like, the ball is making its way to AJ Brown. It's making its way to Devonta Smith. Now, in the case of Devonta Smith, it's up to him to catch that ball. And that's what was really uncharacteristic yesterday, is that he just he looked. It wasn't even like Aguilar, because Aguilar is like, that was just like not paying attention. Almost, it looked like
there was no skill in Aguilar.
Well, the thing is, like, he looked like he was just having mental gaps, whereas Devontae feels like he's pressing. Is the thing, and he's getting in his own head. He's getting in his own way, trying to reestablish himself as a top tier threat. That lethal. We were talking about him as one of the top secondary receivers in the entire NFL. You know, his name along with guys like T. Higgins. You talk about other guys who are struggling this year, but you know, Devonta wants to go back to reestablishing himself to that caliber of a player, to exceeding that, and he's coming up short. A huge reason why is that he just consistently seems to be pressing, and it's disappointing. You feel for the guy. He's got to straighten it up. He's got to rectify this, because it is not all on him. Obviously, what happened this past week. The game does end differently if he doesn't have these mental miscues because he's pressing. So he's really got to clean it up if he wants this team to go anywhere. Forget his season. If he wants the team to go anywhere, he has to clean up these mental mistakes.
And it's interesting because a lot of people going into the season were expecting Devontae Smith to kind of pass AJ Brown as in the top list for wide receivers, right? But you're seeing AJ kind of just making everything happen when he touches the ball. Smitty just seems like he's I don't want to say checked out, that's the wrong word, but he just seems like he's frustrated with everything going on around him, that it's allowing it to show a little bit too much. Last week, the game before, you saw him hugging Nick Sirianni. Yeah.
Aguilar was checked out. Smitty's frustrated, but you were saying.
Yeah, no, Smitty, you could tell for the past couple of games, just looks extremely frustrated, and it doesn't help when your quarterback. And forgive me for saying this. I know we had the best offensive line in the league, and I know we're going through injuries, but it just seemed like nothing made sense of what Sirianni and Johnson did. Like, why was Dallas Goedert not next to Driscoll for majority of the game when Johnson went out? Like, why did you not add a second blocker around that area? Because you saw Driscoll get beat almost every single time. If I'm Jalen Hurts and I'm back there, I'm gonna end up looking like Carson Wentz did at one point, and just heaving the ball up there, and it sucks. Like, that was the reality of that game. But it feels like a big misstep on the coaching staff more than the playmakers. Even though the playmakers dropped the ball a lot, Kenny Gainwell third down, dropped the ball. Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert with that weird. What did they rule that a fumble or interception?
It was an interception, which it should and it shouldn't have been. So, by the letter of the law, it was an interception. That being said, it was Dallas Goedert's fault completely, and that's you kind of feel for Jalen Hurts, and that almost was like the start of it for his game kind of slipping. But it's not. It wasn't Hurts' fault. Now you want to talk about some of the later picks. You know, he's staring down or I should say, two defensive backs in double coverage. Then we can talk about it being Jalen Hurts' fault. But getting back to the play calling, the decision making to not have that support, you bring up a great point with Dallas Goedert not being there to help blocking. You got to remember, it's not just Lane Johnson who's down. The team's still missing Cam Jurgens, and Sua Opeta has done a rather solid job overall. But you're talking about two replacements on the right side, and you're not reinforcing that side of the field. I mean, at least, go 12 personnel, put Jack Stoll there, like at the very least.
Exactly.
But, you got
to protect your quarterback. You got to be smart.
You have to protect the quarterback. And the other thing on top of that is, you really got to make sure that you're great in pass protection. I'm talking about the running back at that point too. You have to make sure that you are consistently leaving a guy behind to help protect Hurts even more so. It kept the offense from finding its rhythm. It kept Jalen Hurts from finding a much needed rhythm, as did Devonta Smith's drops, as did AJ Brown not running out that one deep route that would have been a touchdown. It all kind of culminated together into a complete losing effort by the offense. The defense, all things considered, did very well. Now, should they have gotten to the quarterback a lot more than they did? Absolutely. But all things considered, they did pretty good. It's kind of tough to combat the offense turning the ball over 4 times, was it, by the end of the night?
Yeah, 4 turnovers.
It's tough.
It's just a weird position to be in. It's just like, it's so much blame to go around, right? Like we as fans, you see the blame going towards Brian Johnson. As some fans, the blame going to Jalen Hurts. And it's just, there's no rhythm, right? There's no identity. They, week 2, they're a team that loves to run, right? And then against oh my God, who did they face before the Jets? The Rams. They're a team that wants to go heavily passing, right? There's no identity, there's no balance, and it just seems like right now the plays that they're calling, it weirdly feels like Doug Peterson days with Press Taylor out there, where they're looking for the deep ball. They're looking for the guys who are going down and the routes are taking too long to break. You gotta just reel it in a little bit. Just create the mismatches up front. Get Devontae Smith on a slant. Get DeAndre Swift on a slant or out the backfield. Like just you have to be creative to the point where you're not being that creative, if that makes sense. Like the creativity has to be there, but it just can't be. You got to work hard, work smarter, not harder. At the end of the day, is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Quick update. Obviously, the Phillies are playing as we are doing this podcast, so that should just tell you how much we love all of you for being here during this Phillies game.
Exactly. I'm not trying to keep you guys away from that.
Trey Turner just popped off for a solo home run, so the Phils are up 1-0. Long ball getting towards the Diamondbacks early once again. So, of course, go Phils, Red October, we move. So, like I said, this is what I need. I need this to as I accidentally mute my mic. I need this to pick me up a little bit. it was a tough game all the way around. And you brought up a good point about people are looking to lay blame in different areas. And conversely, at the same time, you're looking at a lot of people who are kind of shouting back and saying, well, you can't blame this person, or it's not this person. Look at this, that, and the other thing. And I think a lot of that's been focused around Jalen Hurts. There's a lot of people being extremely protective of Jalen Hurts, extremely defensive of Jalen Hurts. And I think the thing that both they and the people who are going too far the other way and attacking Jalen Hurts need to understand is that it's about balance. Like, both things can be true. It can be Jalen Hurts' fault and not just Jalen Hurts' fault. So we cannot give someone a pass necessarily. We can acknowledge the fault of others contributing to the loss, but we cannot just simply go and give someone a pass. And Jalen Hurts is not giving himself a pass. Nick Sirianni is not giving himself a pass, nor is Sirianni as head coach giving Jalen Hurts a pass, giving Dallas Goedert a pass, DeAndre Swift, who had the fumble, a pass. Listen, you have to work as a team. That is the only way that you win football games. And despite some of the challenges the Eagles have faced at times this season, by and large, they have gone in week out as a team, and they've succeeded. They didn't operate the same way this past Sunday. And yes, you can point to singular things such as the run differential. You can point to singular things such as the turnover issues. At the end of the day, what it really looks like is a lack of focus and a lack of preparation. And that's possibly the greatest sin that you can commit in the game of football. So it's something they really have to clean up. It's not going to be an easy week this upcoming week against Miami. We're going to touch on that a little later on. But you have to be prepared week in and week out. You cannot play down to your opponents. The 49ers lost to the Cleveland Browns without Deshaun Watson and without Nick Chubb. It's the same except in their case, they lost Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel, their two top weapons, offensively speaking, in the middle of the game. Now, of course, we lost Lane Johnson, but what skill position on offense did the Eagles lose during that game? They did not. So, almost another home run. So close. So you really have to make sure that you don't have that same excuse that San Francisco has. And of course it's BS, what they're saying in the national media about how, the Eagles suffered an embarrassing loss while the 49ers suffered a quality loss. But you can't listen to that noise. What you have to know is that no matter who you play, remember the false saying of any given Sunday. It's annoying as all hell when someone says any given Sunday. But there's a lot of truth to it, and we just saw it this past Sunday. So you cannot go in assuming the win against anybody. You could play Colorado this Sunday, and you can't go in just assuming that you're going to get the win. You have to go in, you have to fight for your life every single game. And that's what the Eagles have to next time if they're going to have a chance against that explosive Miami offense.
It feels like they kind of went in expecting to win this game, right? Like, think about it, sitting out Darius Slay because of the knee issue, sitting out Jalen Carter because of the ankle issue, holding those two key guys out against the Jets. I feel like you're kind of walking into MetLife like, yeah, we got this in the bag. But it doesn't need to be overlooked that the Jets defensive line or Jets defense overall is one of the more elite defenses in football this season. They may not have an offense that's worthy of them winning games, right? But they do have a defense and a defensive minded coach that is a very intelligent guy that can actually,
Sure.
put quarterbacks in their place. Um, and when you're facing a rookie offensive coordinator, that you're going to see that 9 times out of 10 that they're going to take advantage and they're going to beat that guy to the ground. And that's just what happened, right? The Eagles, I feel like they got too cute going into Sunday, and they fumbled it, right? They got humbled.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, they got a reality check, but a very much needed humbling experience for them. Do I expect them to bounce back? We'll talk about that a little later on. We do have to talk about something more important before the Dolphins recap. But first, we'll go to Zach from a word from our sponsors.
Absolutely, yes. So some of you may remember our friends at La Touraine. Well, La Touraine is back, and we have a huge, exciting announcement with them from our friends at La Touraine. Nothing beats the look of a high-quality watch. And if you want a designer look without having to pay designer prices, La Touraine has the watches for you. You guys know this. You remember this. You've seen them before. So whether you're watching the birds or you're watching Flippin the Birds, make sure you're doing so flexing a La Touraine watch. We have a new promo code with La Touraine that is now Watch FTB. Again, that is Watch FTB. You get 25% off. Not 10 like it used to be. 25% off any La Touraine watches now. That's latouraine.com. Shop affordable luxury watches. Kick it in style, man. What can I tell you? La Touraine, we've known them for years. Great guys, great watches. No better way to watch the birds than with the La Touraine watch on your wrist. Back to you, Brian.
Awesome. So definitely use that code Watch FTB. And right now we got to watch a little bit something else. Julio Jones. There's a sighting of Julio Jones in Philadelphia right now. Something that's been a long time Eagles wish, right? Julio Jones signed today to the practice squad for Philly as they need a wide receiver 3. I get it, guys. It's not Julio Jones of the Falcons. It's not number 11 with the jet style speed. But it is a pretty damn big wide receiver playing in the slot for a team that needs as many targets in the red zone as much as they need it outside the red zone. How do you feel overall about the Julio Jones signing?
Yeah, so listen, the important thing to remember is that you have to put it into perspective, right? So it's Julio Jones, so it's always going to get a lot of buzz whenever he joins the team. Julio Jones was signed to the practice squad. Okay, so what does this mean? What is his role going to be? Do I think he's going to play? Yeah, I do. I think that they're going to elevate him 2, possibly 3 times. And then they're going to either decide to cut bait and move on to another target, whether that's in the trade market, whether it's another guy through free agency, or whether they're just going to continue with the guys that they have and just let guys like Kez get fully healthy. Or they're going to sign Jones for the rest of the year. A lot of that depends on how Jones performs at this point. I think that he has the potential to find a solid role. I'm kind of excited by the combo of him and Olamide Zaccheaus. He's not who he was. That's why he's being signed to the practice squad. But to have another big body target like that, yeah, I think it makes perfect sense for the Eagles. Great red zone target for the Eagles, for Jalen Hurts. We'll see what eventually happens. I mean, is he going to set the world ablaze? No. Is he the Julio Jones of the past? Absolutely not. But yeah, I think it's a quality signing. I don't think anyone should be upset by it. I'm still looking to see what they do. Forgetting Josiah Scott, I want to see what they do with the secondary, specifically through the trade market. But if we're talking about Julio Jones, yeah, that's fine. It's not going to instill me with a bunch of confidence. But I think it was a positive move. And I think that's the perspective that you have to have is, look at it as someone that they've added to the practice squad. Don't look at it as this was their big marquee midseason move. And then you'll have a right perspective based on that.
I completely agree with that. One thing I want to point out, right? A lot of people are not keen to the signing just because he isn't who he used to be, and that's completely understandable. There was a rumor going around that possibly the Eagles could,
Can I give me 2 seconds? Give me 2 seconds here. He isn't
yeah,
who he used to be. Kes Watkins isn't who he ever was. All right. So let's talk about that for a second. Like, I don't want to hear any more Julio Jones isn't who he used to be. He's still he's still fine. He's still an NFL player. Like, I get it. We didn't sign Terrell Owens. Oh, geez, what a shame. Through week 6, this guy was available. All right. You get who you get. That's the thing, is that this wasn't
keep
a
moving.
trade. That's what people have to keep in perspective. Like, should this move be celebrated? Should this be, Howie sees and everybody goes ballistic? No, but it's a quality move. I think he's one of the best targets available. He's got great size, which the Eagles could definitely use in the slot. So yeah, it's a fine move. It's perfectly fine. What I want to see is how exactly he's going to be utilized. Do you think he's basically going to be the pure slot going forward, Brian, or what are you expecting to see from him?
So what I was going to say is I feel like people were keen on possibly Zach Ertz returning, right? I think that was a dope idea. But I feel like this one's a little bit better, right? Because you have a guy who could still move, who could play in the slot and play on outside, who's just as big as a tight end, right? But now what this does is it allows you to use the versatility of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith if you have Julio Jones on the outside or in the slot.
Yeah.
You could put Smitty in the slot now, and he could take advantage of the underneath routes and make linebackers miss here and there. I feel like this is a good way to instill confidence in a Devontae Smith, right? To instill confidence in a Jalen Hurts, where you have this huge target on the outside. Now you have 2 of them. You have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. Or you have this huge target in the middle where you have now 2 of them, Dallas Goedert and Julio Jones. Like, this gives you a little bit of a double stuff. Like, you had a single Oreo, right? Now you got a double stuff Oreo. So like, it just gives you more target in the field. Double
stuff Oreo. So the one other thing that I'll say, you brought up Zach Ertz, and I knew we were going to talk about him tonight. I was looking forward to it. And I am
Don't break my heart now. Don't break my heart now.
Listen, I'm not saying this to say that I think that they're going to land Zach Ertz. I think that there are reasons why Ertz may not be keen to come back to Philadelphia, mostly role related. But
bit of an emotional breakup as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of an emotional breakup. I mean, he still loves the fans here. He loves the city of Philadelphia. I think he still has close ties to the organization. I think that he's looking to have a little bit more opportunity than he would have in Philadelphia. And obviously this is, wherever Arizona trades him, that's where he's going to go. Listen, when you're in the position Arizona is and you're trying to move veterans, especially guys like Zach Ertz, guys who have earned it in the league, you're not moving these guys for quality draft picks. You're moving this guy. You're getting a 6th and you're sending back a 7th as well. Is probably what's going to happen in a Zach Ertz trade. When you're doing something like that, you usually don't mind taking care of a guy and sending him to, let's say that there's 5 destinations that are reaching out with the same offer for Ertz. Yeah, let him pick his, because it doesn't really matter what you get in that case. So do I think that there are better situations for Zach Ertz? I do think so. However, the signing of Julio Jones should not eliminate the idea of bringing in Zach Ertz. That's the only point that I want to bring up, because you could still theoretically have Ertz and Julio Jones on this roster if the Eagles were so inclined to do so. I get it. The Eagles have 4 tight ends. They're only dressing 3. I do think that they would have a little bit more confidence in a guy like Zach Ertz this year, at least, over either Jack Stoll or Grant Calcaterra. Now, Stoll has been a solid blocker. Calcaterra is a fine receiving threat. They're not utilizing either, is the thing. And I'm going to mess up his name. We'll just call him Alberto. For Alberto, like, that seems more like a developmental move than anything. I think that has very big implications for next season. Potentially years after that, they're going to see what kind of player they have in him. So they're not necessarily worried about it this season. Don't let the 4 tight ends thing really bother you that much as far as bringing in Zach Ertz. I think that the possibility is still on the table, despite the amount of tight ends currently rostered and despite Julio Jones being here. Do I think it's likely? I don't, but I don't think those are contributing factors in that decision.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would love to see 86 back in Philly, honestly. I think that's a great way to end your career, especially with a team that could possibly go ring chasing a little bit. But yeah, listen, again, I know Julio Jones is not the flashiest signing, but it's a hell of a signing nonetheless, especially for your wide receiver three. You have a veteran that you have Devontae Smith who can learn from him. You had AJ Brown who played with him already before. Like these are guys that looked up to Julio Jones coming into the league. So to me, it's still a big move for just so many implications that it could have on this group. But now we have to talk about a wide receiver that's actually taking the league by storm, part of a team that's taking the league by storm, and will be coming into Philly on Sunday night, Kelly Green night, first and foremost. So happy Kelly Green week to everybody. Eagles and Dolphins Sunday night football. We don't have Eric here to give us his prediction, right? I know Eric's been on a roll with the Eagles' losses. He definitely was he's 1-on-1 from last week. um, but this is it's a tough matchup. I mean, I feel like it's two teams that are on the cusp of something great. Tua Hurts, yeah, there has to be some type of rivalry there, right? You have Tua who took Hurts' job at one point, even though Jalen, doesn't see it that way, right? Um, then you have Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown, the two top wide receivers in the league. Like it's just this game is it's gonna have big implications as to where Philly goes next. After seeing them play the Jets and after seeing how they stumble at the finish line with the Jets, I can also see them bouncing back and actually winning this game against the Dolphins, especially if Xavier Howard is not playing due to that groin injury. But my concern is Darius Slay. Is Darius Slay going to be on the field? Is Darius Slay going to be following Tyreek Hill? I had a big issue last week where I feel like James Bradbury was not told to follow Garrett Wilson, but he kept Garrett Wilson in check in the red zone. So that was bothering me a bit. But Darius Slay, I feel like, is a key part of this game, as well as Jalen Carter, because the Eagles greatly missed their rookie pass rusher in this game against the Jets. How are you feeling about Sunday night?
Not great. This was the game that I had picked at the start of the season to be the Eagles' first loss. Hopefully, this loss at the Jets kind of takes that over. Just Kelly Green night, Sunday night football. It just feels like setting the stage for disappointment, if I'm being honest. That being said, I don't think the offense is going to look as bad as it did last week. And I do think that Xavier Howard being out will make a difference for the Eagles. But when you look at last week, DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner both out for the Jets. Still caused a lot of issues. Now, granted, the front four and even the linebacking core for the Jets, which is also fantastic, still an upgrade over Miami, but there's still guys who are going to get plenty of opportunity to test this Eagles offensive line, this Band-Aid, patched up, hanging on by a thread offensive line. So we'll see what exactly the Miami defense can do against them. But I do think the Eagles offense takes off a little bit more. I think it's a big A.J. Brown game. I think that he sees Tyreek Hill as a rival. I don't think that's a two-way street. However, it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be in A.J. Brown's head. Devontae Smith, obviously the parallel with Jalen Waddle. I think it's going to be a big game to get him going. And I do think that kind of moving him operating in the slot, giving him kind of easy touches to get the game started would be a great way. Sorry, JT Real Muto right to the corner. Will be a great way to get the offense going a little bit for Smith, make it a little easier for him. I want to see Dallas Goedert get involved. I want to see them work the middle with him as well. I think that there is no shortage of options that they could go to offensively against this Miami defense that has kind of disappointed this year. There's even talks of people being frustrated with Vic Fangio. It's not been the stalwart defense that many had expected. They've been kind of middle of the pack.
No Jalen Ramsey.
No Jalen Ramsey's been huge, obviously. They're in is it the 10, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just outside the top 10 in some major receiving stats, two wide receivers given up. Like, there's an opportunity here for AJ Brown, for Devontae Smith, but it's up to the Eagles to take it. Basically, I think it's going to be a shootout, and it's really going to be up to the Eagles to seize the opportunity.
If it ends up being a shootout, how do you feel about Brian
Bad,
Johnson and this offense
bad, very
going?
bad, very bad.
I think that's my issue. Like, it this offense is starting to remind me a little bit too much of Carson Wentz, 2019 being scared, 2020 being scared, Doug Peterson, job on the line. These weird routes that they're calling. Um, and it's just I feel like it doesn't have to be that, right? Like this offense doesn't have to be complicated. I don't know if anybody's in Brian Johnson's ear because we did have the rumors years ago where Jeffrey Lurie wanted, Carson to have these padded QB stats. I don't know if anybody's in Jalen Hurts' ear or if he's scared of getting injured because of this big deal that he signed, right? The Eagles for lack of better terms, they gotta take their bra off and just relax, just breathe. Like, you just gotta go out there, play the game that you guys love, and play it to the best of your ability. Like, you don't have to be the smartest person on the field to win the game. Robert Saleh told you guys that pretty much. Zach Wilson was his quarterback. Um, you just gotta execute in the times that you're needed to. You gotta depend on DeAndre Swift as opposed to Kenny Gainwell. If I see Kenny Gainwell take another snap or so many back to back to back to back, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Don't even take the field. Got to be a healthy.
Just
stretch.
don't like the moment he dropped that third down pass, it blew it for me. Like I'm over it. He has his great moments, but Kenny Gainwell is not the running back that should be spelling DeAndre Swift. It should be Rashad Penny, which blows my freaking mind that we're week 6 and he's not touched the field except once.
When you talk about the Miami Dolphins, should there even be a back who spells DeAndre Swift? Can you afford there to be a back who spells DeAndre Swift? And also, I would say Boston Scott has actually played fairly well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
Granted,
put him over Kenny. Put him over Kenny as well.
For sure. But the thing that I'll say, Miami's given up over 112 yards per game, rushing 2 backs. Like, you have to take advantage of that. You have to make the ground game a core part of your game. Dominate the time of possession. Don't let them score electric. Like, that's the thing, is you can't let this become a tit for tat scoring matchup. You can't let this be become a basketball game where you're each heading down the court one after another. You have to control the time of possession. You have to control the game through the ground. And then you need your defense to be well rested so they can settle in and just kind of knock them off the groove, knock them off their block, as it were. And hopefully you come out on top after all that. I mean, just frankly put, this Miami team looks better than this current Eagles team. Now,
hands down, yeah, absolutely.
It's not that simple. We know that. A Jets team that is easily worse than the Eagles just won this past Sunday. It is not always the best team that wins. It's the
any
best
given
team
Sunday
during the game. So the Eagles, it's going to sound so stupid, but the thing is, you have to be the best team during the game. How do you do that against Miami? You run the ball, you control the clock. That's got to be what they do, how they approach this game offensively.
And it's just a matter of executing. Like, the Eagles, they did fairly well in the red zone against the Jets. They did fairly well on third down against the Jets, which was great. But it's just a matter of first and second down. You guys have to execute. You can't be going third and 8.
Don't turn the damn ball over 4 times. Like, that's another. You can't do that. You just can't. You can't throw the ball into a freaking lineman's hands like Dallas Goedert did. You can't fumble if you're DeAndre Swift. You can't eyeball a defender in double coverage and throw directly at him like Jalen Hurts did. You just can't make these stupid, simple mistakes that the team did this past Sunday. You have to clean it up. And honestly, by running the ball, you're taking that pressure off the offense and you're helping to prevent those simple mistakes as well. I get it. DeAndre Swift fumble the ball while running. That's going to happen at some point, okay? But when you're talking about the Dallas Goedert miscue, when you're talking about the Jalen Hurts miscue on the pick, A.J. Brown slowing down, costing the team that touchdown, Devontae Smith dropping that wide open pass that just...
That would have sealed the game, if I'm not mistaken, right? I mean, that would have put them in position.
As an Eagles fan, as a Devontae Smith fantasy team owner, I can't tell you how frustrated I was at that particular moment, especially considering that I lost by 2 points. But that would have iced the game. Yes, it would have. That would have sealed the possession. And listen, it's just... You feel bad for the guy because he doesn't quite have the yips. You don't want to say that, but it's getting to the point where, as I said earlier, he's pressing is what he's doing. And you talked about taking off the bra. I'll say kick off your shoes, for lack of a better term or not, I think there may be one or two others, but you just got to take
Let the
edge
dogs
off
breathe.
Bit, that's exactly it, just unbutton the pants a little bit, like you got to do something to, take off the jeans, put on the sweatpants, just let the situation breathe. You're going to be okay. It's going to be fine. You're Devonta Smith. Remember, at the end of the day, you are a top receiver in this game, and you're working with a high quality quarterback who you've had a long standing relationship with, and you're in a room with a lot of other very talented skill position players who take the pressure off of you, but they want to see you eat almost as much as they want to eat themselves. And most teams don't have that. So you have to realize the situation that you're in and just relax. Part of his training should just be to have a shower beer after every practice, unwind, relax, and he's going to be a lot better come Sunday if he can just take that edge off.
It's an interesting place to be if I'm Jalen Hurts, man. I mean, I don't know. It's just, are you concerned about the way he's played this season so far? I mean, do you feel like it's an contributing of rust, or not playing preseason ball, or is it more so an issue with having Brian Johnson back there now, even though Brian Johnson's been in his ear since he was a kid? What do you think is contributing to this new version of Jalen Hurts that we've been seeing as of late? Because it's very inconsistent.
Sure. No, so I think we're past the preseason thing. I think that definitely was a factor early on. Listen, we're 6 games into the season now. He's in shape, right? Probably would have been better to start off on a better foot if he had played in the preseason, sure, but that's over. That's done. Let's move on. The play calling has been substandard. I think that is irrefutable, basically. On top of that, I don't know what the reason is, but I feel like there's not that confidence to make adjustments. Jalen Hurts doesn't have that confidence to make adjustments as he has in previous years. I don't know if that's not wanting to undermine Brian Johnson. I don't know what exactly that is, but they're just not as free-flowing as he was last year. On top of that, I think the O-line is becoming a bit of a situation. I think that certain players, just Father Time is undefeated, and they've seen the quality of play come a little bit down. I think that the injuries to Cam Jurgens and now Lane Johnson obviously are factors. And all this is it's kind of been a hodgepodge of everything going wrong kind of at once. Devonta Smith pressing. It's just one thing after another. Dallas Goedert's slow start, which, in part is due to Jalen Hurts' lack of success, of course. But, there's also part of it that does fall on Goddard. Do I think they're going to be able to work their way out of it? I do. I don't think that Hurts is necessarily going to return to his MVP caliber style of play that he did last season. I'm hoping he can by the playoffs. But in order for that to happen, it's going to have to be more than just Jalen Hurts. The biggest, if I'm narrowing it down to one thing, and I'm not trying to place all this blame on Brian Johnson, you have to call the game better. You just have to. You have to do such in a way that instills that confidence in Hurts, being able not only to lean on the run game, but knowing how to run the flow. So you're running that perfect combination where, you're not just overly relying on the run, where you are allowing it to let the passing game breathe, allow Hurts to get into space through his own right. I mean, we've seen the comp. This is, for lack of a better comp, Lamar Jackson's been the guy that.
I thought you were going to say Russell Wilson. I was just, don't do it.
Absolutely not. Night and day guys. But when you look at, and I say this as Jackson has improved as a passer, I think Jackson was a significantly worse passer in the early years of his career than Hurts.
Is it foul for me to say that I feel like he's significantly overrated, Lamar Jackson, since coming out? I feel like he's significantly overrated.
He
like somebody,
I don't know.
They wanted a new version of Michael Vick so bad that I feel like they made him that poster boy. But he just, I It's nothing against him. I love watching him play, right? But I just don't think he's in that conversation where people have placed him.
So let's talk about quarterback tiers real quick.
Uh-oh.
You talk about the guys at the top. The guys at the top is just one guy. It's Patrick Mahomes. Like,
Correct,
that's it.
yes.
There's no one on the Patrick Mahomes tier except for Patrick Mahomes and Jackson Mahomes because he just sneaks in wherever Patrick goes.
Mhm.
After that, that's when you start talking about guys like I'd say Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. Josh
Okay.
Allen obviously has been inconsistent.
Are you picking Josh Allen over Jalen? I feel like that's been the main debate.
I don't know that I am, only because, but it's not for mechanical reasons. I think the reason I'm picking Jalen is because he's that much better as a leader, and I truly value that at the quarterback position. I think from an ability standpoint, I would pick Josh Allen over Jalen. But when you look at the total complete picture, I would take Jalen. There's also the fact that Jalen is less experienced and less proven. I mean, I get it. He's been, to the Super Bowl. But what I mean by less proven is on a consistent basis because he hasn't played as many years to show that again and again and again. Joe Burrow, when healthy, is one of the top passers in the entire league. So I feel
Absolutely.
that's without saying. I think that Jalen can be on that Burrow Allen level, or to be more specific, he can be on Josh Allen's level. He's not currently. He's currently in that tier below. That's where you find a guy like Lamar Jackson. That's where you find a guy like a Justin Herbert. Although Herbert is dangerously looking to fall below that tier with how just terrible he looked last night against the Cowboys. But I do think that Jalen Hurts has this ability to reach up there. I just don't think that he's there quite yet because we're not seeing that consistency. And is it because he's lost the talent? I don't think he's lost the talent. I think there are factors at play affecting Jalen Hurts' style of play. And what the team needs to do is just let Jalen be Jalen. Let him play his style, and that means let him be an aggressive runner. I get it. There's a lot of money tied up to him. He's your franchise quarterback. You don't want him to get hurt. Strike more of a balance between what he's doing now to avoid injury and being an actual runner. He has to utilize that in some fashion. And this is where the Lamar Jackson parallels come, is that while Jalen Hurts is a better mechanical quarterback than Lamar Jackson, although Jackson has the stronger arm, you have to utilize the ground game as a mobile quarterback in order for this guy to truly be as effective as he possibly can be. So taking that away from him, you're really handicapping the guy, and you're not allowing him to be himself. If you were to embrace Jalen Hurts for who he is, I think we're looking at a completely different looking Eagles offense. And I think that a lot of these questions that we have are finally answered. So hopefully they can get it a little bit more into that kind of groove as the season goes on. They're going to need to, because this schedule is not getting any easier right now. Going up against Miami. This isn't in any particular order because I forget the order, but it's Miami, Kansas City, Dallas, Buffalo, San Francisco.
Dallas twice, actually.
Dallas twice. It's not easy. So you have to figure this out, and you have to figure this out now. So hopefully this can be a good measuring stick to see, how do we approach, and honestly, against a team as electric as the Miami Dolphins, it may be a good time for Philadelphia because you have more opportunity to get that offense on the field because of how electric the opposing team's offense is. Let's just get reps on reps on reps on reps. Now, hopefully you can get some sustained drives going, but this is the time to troubleshoot the situation because you saw last week against New York, what you're doing now is just not good enough, and that's the simple truth of it.
So before we go to predictions, right? I wanna pick at something I feel like nobody's really picking at. Everybody's been blaming the offensive line, right, for the lack of offensive roles, the playmaker dropping the ball, the offensive coordinator coming into a new position, but nobody's mentioned the fact that Jalen Hurts has a new QB coach, Alex Tanney, and nobody's mentioned that Jalen Hurts' footwork and technique has looked completely off balance at times. Like there's no consistency there. You're seeing that when he's overthrowing his guys. Do you think that's playing a bigger factor, a bigger role into? I don't want to use this word, but I feel like I don't have a better word. A regression in Jalen Hurts' game at the moment than having Johnson as offensive coordinator. Like, you have this new guy who's teaching you possibly different techniques than Johnson taught you, and there's no consistency or balance there, so it could be throwing them off completely.
Well, first, let me just say that Kyle Schwarber just hit a solo home run, so we love the Schwarbomb. Now, second, I do think it plays more of a factor than how people are considering the situation now. I think that is something that they should think about more, because it does make a huge difference. You can't just say, "Oh, the quarterback coach went to the OC," so it's virtually the same thing. No, it's not. The level at which Brian Johnson is working with Jalen Hurts has changed. What they go over at practice has changed. And so if you're looking at mechanics changing, that's a sign of the position coach that you're working with. And
because we saw it with Carson Wentz, right? When he lost DiFilippo and they brought in, was it Press or was it Carson Walsh, one of those guys? And you saw a completely different version of Wentz, and the mechanics looked terrible. And
here's something that more teams have to realize, and this is trans sports even. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, come on. Like, listen, look at what Jalen Hurts did last year. Yeah, do people have to improve in certain areas? Absolutely. Don't change the guy's mechanics. Like, just leave him alone. He was doing great. Do I think it's the only reason why Hurts has struggled? No, I think that there's some mental miscues going on, and I think the game's not being called well also. But do I think it's a factor? Absolutely I do, and I think it's something that more people have to consider, especially those within Philadelphia, because that's going to be a tough thing to kind of turn back now that you are so far into the season, nearly halfway. Changing your mechanics not only once, but now you're talking about changing them twice. So we'll see what they can do going forward, but it's not encouraging so far, but there's always time to rectify that. And now you mentioned the word regression. I don't want people to be afraid of the word regression, because you can say, or the word regress. You can say that Jalen Hurts is showing signs of regression. That does not mean that Jalen Hurts has regressed. That does not mean that Jalen Hurts is a lesser player, but he is playing lesser than the standard that he has set for himself. There's nothing wrong in saying that, because that is absolutely the truth. Jalen Hurts himself would tell you that he's not playing at the level he has established for himself. Again, that has to change going forward, and more than anyone else, it's up to Jalen Hurts to fix that.
Completely agree with that. So with that being said, prediction time. It's Eric's favorite time of the day. Eric is actually at Wells Fargo right now covering the Phillies. The Flyers. My apologies. Flyers, who actually did just win, so shout out to them. I don't know. You mentioned shootout, right? You you have one team going in one direction. You have the other team that had a minor setback against the Jets, right? But you do have two different. It's just weird. Like I feel like it feels like they're the same team, but they're really not, right? Like Tyreek Hill's a dynamic wide receiver, and so is AJ Brown, but one's more dynamic with speed, the other one's dynamic with just making things happen with the ball. Jalen Hurts versus Tua, Mike McDaniel versus Nick Sirianni, Christian Wilkins versus Jalen Carter, right? Like, you have so many similarities.
Okay. I still don't know where the Christian Wilkins hype is coming from. I'll be honest.
He's been doing pretty damn good. He's been doing pretty damn good.
Yeah, he's fun. He's a good all-around kind of guy. He's not.
And I like the celebrations. The celebrations are catching me, man. But yes, he's not Jalen Carter, but he's their version of Jalen Carter, right? Just not up to that. As
close as they're gonna get.
Exactly. You have two teams that they mirror each other, in my opinion, right? And it could possibly be a Super Bowl matchup for all we know. But I do give the Eagles the mental edge. One, you're in Philly. And like Merrill Kelly's going to learn tonight, there's no place like Philadelphia in sports. There's no atmosphere like it. And shout out to the Phillies. I put this on Twitter the other day. That game against the Braves where you guys knocked out the Braves, like, that was top tier baseball right there. Just the atmosphere, the stadium, like,
if you're noticing.
It was phenomenal to watch as a baseball fan. Now back to the Eagles. You have Sunday Night Football, you have Kelly Green, and you have Jalen Hurts, who's coming off one of his more embarrassing losses of his career. And he's facing Tua. Like, he's facing Tua, the guy who, took his spot in Alabama, the guy who people deem to be the better version of Jalen Hurts. I'm taking Philly winning this game, and I'm taking them 31-24. It's just my gut telling me, hey, like if Philly wants to make noise, and if they want to knock out the juggernaut, you got to go for the head, right? And Sean Desai said it. They may have speed, but we just got to be physical. We need physicality. And if Darius Slay's back, if Jalen Carter's back, that physicality is back, and that's exactly what you need. And I think Jalen Hurts has a strong mental edge over Tua coming into this game.
If I speak, I am in big trouble.
You say that now. You've been talking the whole podcast.
I wish. Hey. I wish that I was about to give a score in favor of Philadelphia. I do think that they are going to look a lot better than they did last week. I do think that this team is going to struggle a bit against Miami's potent offense. I think that Raheem Mostert is going to cause a bit of an issue against a team that has defended the run pretty well, but it's really going to test them. I have to say, I think that the Miami Dolphins will take this game 37-31.
On Kelly Green night?
On Kelly, and I will say this, and this is what I said when we went through our season predictions at the start of the year. I think that's a factor. It sets up for the perfect disappointment, which is what has happened in Philadelphia time after time after time. We finally get the Kelly Green uniforms, Sunday night football, big game against Tua, against Tyreek, against Jalen Waddle, and what happens? They don't pull out the game.
So you're saying that we start the Kelly Green era 0-1.
Correct. That is correct, sir. And it's going to give ammo for such idiots who consistently say that the team should be or die. And if you say that, it is stupid. It is factually stupid just to say. But yes, the Kelly Green, the spectacular Kelly Green era, which they will go to Kelly Green full-time at some point. I am a full believer in that. It will start 0-1, and people will be jumping off that boat like it's the freaking Titanic.
Oh, are you wearing your Kelly Green on that day? Is the question.
I'm gonna have to. Do everything in my power to give the team the win that day.
Okay.
And it starts with the Kelly Green jersey and the Kelly Green hat. That's where it starts.
I respect it. Okay, so I have them winning. Zach has them losing. Bit of a tough prediction. I think it's fair to say we have that Eric has them losing and Morgan has them winning. So I think
Eric
Eric
did call me before the show to tell me that he did have the Dolphins winning. So
he
said he didn't want to give a score because it didn't matter. He just said the Dolphins win. So
oh God. All right. I mean that's fair, right? It's fair. It's gonna be a week for Philadelphia, right? I mean, there's gonna be rumors flying around. They did, sign Julio Jones. They let go of Mario Goodrich as well. There's gonna be moving parts. Not very good rich at all. Hey, they need safety help, and Jeremy Chin is right out there. I'm just saying, if you want the Dolphins,
Simmons. I mean, come on, there's people out there. Howie, make a move, just not Josiah Scott. Make a real move.
Yes, please. It's yeah. I don't want to talk about Josiah Scott. I'm gonna lose my head.
I wouldn't even hate bringing in another corner. I'll be flat honest with you.
Well, apparently
it doesn't have to be a slap guy, but bringing in an outside corner, that's fine by me.
Desmond King is actually available from the Steelers. That just Chris put it in the chat right now. According to Tom Pelissero, why not? I think he's actually a slot corner, if I'm mistaken, and an outside corner
and a special teams guy too.
Yeah, that would be a big move, but the Eagles need safety help if Reed Blankenship cannot go. F.U. Allen Lazard for that foolish play.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, so we'll be back next week. Whether it's, Eagles are 5-2, Eagles are 6-1. That still yet to be determined on Sunday Night Football. Definitely be sure to catch the game. And if you guys can, make sure you guys are following our Twitter and our Instagram, where we're revamping things a little bit here and there to give you guys a more exciting Flipping the Birds experience, a little bit more personal experience, right? And also make sure you guys are visiting La Terrain. Definitely grab yourself a watch. We're about to be into the holiday season. Use code WatchFGB.
Off.
That's a hell of a deal if you ask me.
Beautiful watch. Oh, it's blurred out. Oh, what a shame.
Pulling off the Shador with the blur.
Beautiful La Terrain watches.
There it is.
Also, do not forget to check out. We're gonna have soon Flippin the Birds TikTok edition. So for all you TikTok toxic tacos out there, get ready for that.
Say that 5 times fast.
It's the TikTok toxic tacos. That's it. I got one more. That's all I got in me.
Oh God. Yeah. So until next week, I'm Brian Cameron alongside Zach Chavalella, and we're Flipping the Birds.
Peace.
Yes, sir.